Okay, well, I don't know. It's been a while since we've spoken. Now, the last time the three of us spoke was November 23.
Okay.
Um, Obviously, a lot has happened since then. Would you two just like to maybe just introduce yourselves, and if we have some new viewers and new people that maybe not be familiar with your work, it would just be great to maybe start off with that, so everyone can get to know who's on camera and what we're going to be getting into today.
Why don't you
Sure. Do
go,
you want me to go
John?
first alphabetically?
Yes.
Sure.
My name's John Elmer. I'm a journalist and in recent years, an analyst, I guess. I spent the first half of my life working back and forth between the Middle East, mostly Palestine. I'm a kid of the 9/11 era, so I was involved in the anti-globalization movement, the demos going into the Iraq War when we all realized that you can't change anything. It's like Mohammed Boukaiti from the Answer Allah. He talks about that era a lot. Um, yeah, then I went and I worked in I guess mainstream media. Made documentaries for Vice for a while. I worked for Al Jazeera for a while, and now I work for the Electronic Intifada, where since October 7th, I have done a weekly resistance report. It's called. It used to be focusing on the nitty gritty of the battle in Gaza, which was really remarkable because um, we had footage from it, really, and it just sort of changed the way um, we could analyze. And I think I speak for Justin too in that sense, and um, sort of gave us like the way the Palestinian resistance carried cameras like on their foreheads, just took you right into the middle of the battle. And I feel like all of my previous history kind of put me in a position to be able to analyze that. And it's gone pretty well since then. And, it was something that kept me sane during this genocide, barely.
Kept
Um,
a lot of people saying the reporting that you've been doing.
has kept them sane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah,
been
I
a nice
mean,
antidote to the nonstop barrage of propaganda that we've been inundated with since that time. It's been an
yeah.
absolute. Uh, it's been essential, I think, for a lot of people to be able to have that outlet.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I love to hear that. I think we need a revolution, and I think in part the role that we play in that is getting people accurate information from which to form their revolutionary praxis. So for me, honestly, it's been perfect, and I work at EI with a great team of people. Just pure independence in the like strongest sense of that term, and that I think that really juxtaposes with the real steep decline in I don't know, maybe we should get our terms straight before we get all into this, but like mainstream media, um, it's fallen off a cliff really. It was never great in our lifetimes, but it's clearly fallen off a cliff. And so I get a lot of feedback on people from people just saying like, this is something that we never see anywhere else. And that, yeah, I think that's kind of the dream as a journalist, right? Like a
Yeah.
lot of years of arguing with editors and like working at Vice, it just made the independence just seem so um, just so rich, and to be able to take um, to take full to take that for its fullest, really, to
Yeah.
and really show the resistance in a way that I think a lot of people didn't think was allowed, frankly.
Yeah.
Um,
ICE is probably
so
too
yeah.
busy right now putting together stories about like the badass freedom fighters bringing down the Iranian regime from the inside type
Yeah, the
stuff.
skateboarders. There's probably some Iranian skateboarders that are that are in a punk band.
Yeah.
They're
We
they're
did
with
some
the
pretty
they're with
serious
the regime too,
documentaries,
actually.
but we were right on the edge of like, I could do it, but just barely. And when I
Yeah.
finished the run of documentaries, I was like, this is not the best use of my life. So
Sure.
Whew.
How about you, Justin? Hello.
Oh, yes. Okay. That was a nice intro, actually. So I'll do a different one. I'll be like you guys probably watched that Batman movie where the Joker gives a different bio every time. You want to know how I got these scars?
Yeah. You don't know how I got these mental scars?
So I was an activist, and I worked for a website called ZNet, which was like publishing Noam Chomsky and his proteges, I guess, which I suppose I was one. So it was a bit of a. I'm still in a like, I don't know, shock.
The last year's been a little bit of a roller coaster for the gnome heads.
Somewhere in that stage. And I wrote about it a little bit for my Substack. I have a Substack, and I've been trying to like kind of reestablish my intellectual independence from like kind of building it on a base of what you might call Chomskyism. And when John said that, we learned, in '03 that nothing, you can't change anything, it was sort of like, all of these pillars of somewhat invisible pillars of Chomskyism, but like, Chomsky actually is a nonviolence advocate if you look at his work carefully. And I've had to let go of that. He's an advocate of like, I don't know, democracy. I'm reconsidering whether democracy is even desirable. Never, like, you're watching Hezbollah, and it's sort of like, I don't anyway, we can get into that, but it's like, why should Hezbollah have to have a majority before they decide to defend their country when their country, when the state that's in charge of Lebanon is not waiting for a majority to decide to surrender? They didn't ask the Lebanese majority if they wanted to surrender to Israel. So why should Hezbollah have to? Anyway, that's another thing. But like democracy, nonviolence, these are all these kind of like mental constructs in my mind that I'm working on. I don't know, purging.
Yeah.
And so recently, one of the ways that I've done that though to make it biographical is I've had a historical podcast for the past 4 or 5 years with my history teacher from high school who I met before Chomsky. So, he was something like a role model before, but he's a liberal. So we have an eternal debate about things like Russia, and especially Russia, which he hates. He hates Russia. I'm not like, I'm also not like, a Russia fan boy or whatever per se, but I don't have like an irrational hatred for Russia. But so we're doing this podcast history. We started in 1492 4 or 5 years ago, and we're now in between World War I and II, and wrapping up there's a third part of our series. We did about 3 hours on the rise of Shah Pahlavi in Iran. So that's what I'm just
that's got to be interesting.
I'm about to post the third episode of what the original Shah Pahlavi in Iran, who was like a Cossack junior officer in the 1920s, who then through a whole bunch of manipulation and especially British sponsorship, first had a coup to overthrow the Qajar dynasty, which had ruled for 100 and some years, and then had himself declared the new Shah. So he, so we know there's history of the Pahlavi family, like they were a village family, like light cavalry, low-level officer, sponsored by Britain to become the Shah, overthrown by Britain in 1941, and then brought back. The son was brought back from 1953. Overthrown again in 1979, and now the grandson is looking to have a chance, which I don't think he'll have a chance. So history, politics. I have a YouTube channel. So John, John's been doing the resistance report for Electronic Intifada. Every so often, John joins me on our like I do this thing which I've called the sit rep. It's military. Whenever you report on how things are going in a war, everybody calls it a sit rep. So I just started calling it that. And
Just sounds cool.
and John joins. Yeah, there have been, I don't know, 205 of them since 2023. So there have been about 4 or 5 of them since the Iran war started. And John and I want to get together and do one, but he's overwhelmed with doing his weekly report, and I'm overwhelmed with doing mine.
This war is overwhelming. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
you guys are two people
So-
who know better than most.
This is our only chance to get together and do this, Rob. So thank you.
No, it's my pleasure. It was. I really enjoyed the last time we all got to get together to talk about this, and I ended up being very proud of that conversation. And I think we were kind of ahead of the curve on a lot of the things that were happening at that time. And the subsequent couple of years have kind of proven that, I think. But I think so. You both touched on something that I think would be an interesting place to start, actually. This idea of the Iraq war protests. And yeah, Justin, to your point, I think all of us who have lived through the last 25 years are probably reevaluating a lot of ideas that we previously held about things like liberal democracy and authoritarianism and nonviolence and terrorism and all these kinds of kinds of concepts. But there has been a lot of talk right now, over the last couple of weeks while this war with Iran has been going on. A lot of people asking, well, where's the anti-war movement? Why haven't we seen big mobilizations? Why haven't we seen any of these kind of big protests? And obviously, it's a big question. I think there's a couple of ways you can look at that, but I think to what you were saying, I think I do get a sense that people have kind of internalized this idea that like there's no real point to this. Yes, we might be signaling to the people in the ruling class or the media that there's major opposition to this war. Yes, we might feel good doing it, but I think we all understand that we don't have a say in what the state is doing in this. We can protest, we can not protest. They're going ahead with it anyways. I mean, look at Trump's own base and they're the way that they talk about this. I mean, it just seems like there's no real motivating factor to get people out into the streets. And like we've seen dozens of other protests over the last 10, 20 years, including like the largest mass mobilization in modern U.S. history about systemic violence and racism and police violence, and which led to the police in America getting more money than before and killing more people than before. So I do feel like there's this sense of futility to it that I think is contributing to this lack of a mobilization that we've seen. I don't think it's the only reason. And I'm not trying to say that no one should protest or do anything. But I feel like that's got to be one reason that we haven't seen one of these big mass mobilizations. But I'm curious about what you two think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good question. I think, just from being that generation, like the number of people that we put out in the streets in the lead up to to the Iraq War, and it wasn't like it was across a whole bunch of so-called democracies. So it was you couldn't just say like, oh, it was a blip on the Canadian system or our parliament is set up in such a way. Like it was just in whatever countries. That it didn't do what people thought it would do. And then not only that, but it set off this like decade of horror, right? That was just like way worse, it seemed, than what we thought. War is bad, let's stop the war. And the war took on this, I mean, I guess it always does, but we were young at the time, and so it was kind of the first time that we actually saw a war like that. But just the horrors that were inflicted, and then the like abject lack of accountability out of that. I think that's like, I mean, I haven't really seen a demonstration. I get like the George Floyd demos that you referred to for sure seem stronger in the States, I think. Although I think they did probably have a bit of a Canadian. But yeah, just that
There was
the
some stuff here in
numbers.
Montreal where they obviously also did get tear gassed and attacked by police at the time as well. But yeah, it was happening. But you're right, not to the same extent.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's like I saw Iranians saying, "Why isn't there a protest like in Iraq 2003?" And I was sort of like, I get it in a way, but like Iraq 2003 protests accomplished nothing. So like you're wishing for something that accomplished nothing. Like why aren't there people coming out and saying like not in our name to something that then just happens and destroys a country and kills a million people and sets off this chain of events that I mean,
And then those people disappeared too, right? So it was like we
yeah.
had all these people out in the streets, and you have this moment, as a like wannabe revolutionary, where you say like this is part of what it looks like. You mobilize people who weren't previously engaged, you bring them in, and you grow to a size that you cannot be ignored. And we did that. We really grew to that size. Like you think about
Yeah.
the demos in London, and yeah, and it didn't have any impact. And then all of the people disappeared. So I mean, I had the same experience with the anti-globalization movement, where there was like seemed to be a building momentum, street fighting and a real radicalism to it. And then September 11th happened, and all of a sudden it was like, whoa, only, one out of every 20 of those people,
Mhm.
um, maybe even less, are actually involved, beyond just that single demonstration that they. So I
Yeah.
think there was a lot of sort of.
Movements are easy to ignore. Movements are easy to, and it's also like there's this movementism again, like it's Chomsky, right? It's like the idea that like you get all these people in the street and you send a strong message and like like write letters to the editor and you meet in church basements and you pass around pamphlets and then like maybe you pressure the ruling class to do something that they don't want to do, and it's like this ruling class are monsters. Like they're devil worshipping, satanic, child murdering monsters. Like I don't wanna like force them to do something. I want them like gone, you know?
Yeah.
So it's the whole thing, the whole framework of like protest movement, where it kind of assumes that we're all in the same club almost. And I guess like Chomsky would think that because he was in that club, right? Like he's meeting Barack and he's meeting these people and he's like Woody Allen, whatever. But so it's like
Number of other
the
people as
idea
well.
that like
Yeah.
you can express that to someone who's gonna listen to you, it makes sense if you think they see you as a human being, but like they don't see us as human beings. Like
Yeah.
the division between them and us is so much more total than that protest movement theory believes.
Yeah, and I mean, it speaks to the kind of problems with democracy that you led off by talking about, because we get this feeling that if we're dissatisfied about something, there are these like release valves in the form of
Yeah.
these mass mobilizations, which are permitted, that don't really metastasize into anything actually organized, and everything gets funneled into this electoral system. And
Yeah.
that's how we tell ourselves that we have this kind of say over what's happening. But then we see just this constant effect of taking all this energy being funneled into this system, and then the exact same outcome, or maybe a slightly different outcome, happening.
Yeah,
Like
I
going
feel
back
like
to America and Obama and Obama's version of the global war on terror versus the
Yeah,
George Bush version. Yeah, it's a different.
there's
Maybe it's
no
two different
difference.
things, but it's like
Yeah,
ultimately it's the same
and
effect.
I feel it makes me feel so crazy to like hear that electoral stuff. Like they open this war by bombing a girls' school, like
Yeah,
killing 200 girls, and then I'll see analysts on the internet, and they're like, Trump's gonna lose the midterm. And it's like, what are you talking about? Losing the midterm? Like they're committing genocide all over the region. Like, and we're talking about midterm elections, and like that's gonna be the consequence. That's like not your head rolling, but like you're losing an election, like losing a midterm
Yeah,
election and
not even, you're
staying
losing
president.
like backbenchers in that
Yeah.
election, right? It's yeah, it's dark. I mean, the world is on the precipice, and somehow the mainstream media thinks the story is if gas prices can get in check before people
Yeah.
start knocking on
Yeah,
doors.
look at the poll numbers. It's
Yeah, look at the
fluctuating.
poll
There's some serious
numbers.
fluctuation in this polling
He's
right now.
polling. Yeah, the price of the stock market, $1 trillion was wiped from the stock. Like, what are you talking
Yeah.
about?
I mean, it was surreal. Going back to our conversation from November 23, it was extremely surreal after they did bomb that school to see the whole song and dance playing out again. Oh, we actually that was not us, and we think it may have actually been a misfired. And it's like, guys, come on, like we're really gonna do this again? Like that was really actually fascinating to me to watch them trot out all this exact same thing, and people still playing along with it. The people that bomb schools like for fun, and we're supposed to now question whether this was maybe something else, and it's just it's so clear. It should be so clear to everybody. And it was amazing to even see that conversation take place a little bit.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just
Though, yeah. And just that the like humans that are in these positions never seem to have a moment where they break and actually show that they're real, right? Like they don't have an introductory sentence about the massacre at the girls' school before they, get into their politics or whatever that shows that they are at least like sentient beings.
yeah,
Yeah, they just go immediately right into that. One was the girls' school was particularly egregious because it was like clearly a Tomahawk cruise missile.
Yeah.
And then
Day
Trump is
one.
trying to say like, oh, lots of people have Tomahawks. And you're just kind of like, they don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Crazy.
that's how they started the war, and it just immediately, it was like the Israeli way of war, it's the American way of war. And for the Israel part of the genocide, there was a lot of, even American soldiers being like, we would never do this. We would never,
yeah.
we had totally different rules than this. And when you kind of drill down on it, they didn't really have different
No.
rules, but
What did they do in Fallujah? In Fallujah,
yeah,
Yeah.
what's that other one?
Abu,
Haditha,
yeah, Abu Ghraib, like
Abu
just this,
Ghraib.
yeah,
Yeah,
they, yeah. Anyways, the fact that they just so quickly, I mean, can you imagine if 160 schoolgirls were killed in one of these countries run by these leaders? I mean, it would be, they would bring, the UN Security Council would be called to meet about it. It would be the biggest story. And it's just,
Of course.
it's just like basically a footnote at this point.
yeah, this whole thing of like let's condemn Iran and condemn Hamas and condemn Hezbollah, and like two things can be true, and we have to like adjust. We have to be nuanced about it, and it's like Iran has launched, I don't know, how many thousand missiles do you think Iran has launched since March, since the beginning of this month? I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 missiles. How many schools have they hit? How many girls'
Yeah.
schools have they hit in UAE, in Kuwait, in Bahrain, in Israel even? Like they haven't hit one school.
No, they don't
So
bring down apartment buildings.
yeah.
They're firing every single day, and somehow they're not hitting these targets that would be just frontline targets for the Israelis and Americans.
And the Israelis, the whole time they were killing these, 100,000, hundreds of thousands of people, children. They were saying, "Oh, it's because we're trying to kill Hamas, and we have to kill all these children because we're trying to kill Hamas." And then Iran is killing, U.S. personnel that are hiding among civilians, and they're still managing to just kill who they're targeting. In like a hotel, you'll see a drone go into the specific window of the hotel room of that officer. Maybe he was there, or maybe he wasn't, but like they don't like there's no moral equivalence. There's no comparing the morality of these two sides.
No.
Israel started the war by moving all of the American strategic refuelers that the entire operation depends on into Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv, which for my entire life, like professional life, and like that is a civilian airport. It's considered untouchable. It's yeah, and it's just the human shield argument that they always give on a smaller level, on the like most obvious level you can imagine, that it's
Yeah.
anyways, I mean, you could talk about the hypocrisy till we're blue in the face, but it is
Yeah.
it's still remarkable, and it doesn't, you don't get used to it.
Rob, are you watching the Lego? Are you watching the Lego videos?
I've been seeing a lot of the propaganda videos that have been coming out. It's pretty remarkable. Yeah.
So, I thought I was anti-AI and anti-AI slob, but
I am willing to carve out a few exceptions, I think, in certain cases.
These videos are an absolute exception. They are so on point. Every detail in them is accurate. It's
no, it's this one thing that I've been talking about, this kind of moral argument about AI, and I'm talking specifically about that Chinese video about the Golden Eagle Alliance and the Persian cats. If you saw that,
did you see that one, John?
No, I didn't.
Oh, John, you gotta watch it. It's
6 minutes long.
It's absolutely incredible, honestly. And yeah, I was thinking about that, and like, yeah, you know what? In an ideal world, morally, I think dozens of artists should have made this film and been paid living wages to do so, and that would have taken 6-8 months, whatever. The ability of these adversary states to just churn out this like propaganda content, you see, it can actually be a very valuable tool. And no matter what your feelings are about the morality of AI or any of the other questions about that, you'd see that there is a kind of like possible positive benefit to this technology when it's used in this kind of context, because these videos are going hugely viral on Western social media, and they're being produced in hours, probably for very little money. And there's this, in terms of the information war, the propaganda war, they're completely clearing whatever the United States is doing right now, and it's been pretty incredible to watch this happen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you could do an entire show just breaking down the details in those Lego videos. They are so
you
on
should
point.
do a Lego. You should do a Lego resistance.
A sit rep, a Lego sit rep.
It's true. It is. It's right there for us, calling to us.
It's there for the taking.
You've got to see the Golden Eagle Alliance one, though. That's the pinnacle so far of the propaganda.
So John, the Iranians are these Persian cats, and then the Americans are these golden eagles, and the golden eagles think that they can just kill. They killed the Meowatola, yes, the cat, the cat that was in charge, and then all of us, the Persian cats get upset and start throwing these wooden, projectiles. And the eagle is sort of like, what are these wooden projectiles going to do? But then gradually they kind of understand that the wooden projectiles keep coming and coming. And
they're launching all their golden cannonballs and needles at the wooden projectiles. And there's this vulture with an abacus that's just getting so upset about the amount of money that they're spending on all it's incredible. No, but that's it. I think that's actually an interesting question right now around this. And it's been fascinating to see that spread. No, but so you touched on something also that I think it's worth getting into as well. We haven't even really got into the details of the logistics of what's currently happening right now, but talking about, we would never do this, and then we're talking about Fallujah or Abu Ghraib or any of the countless hundreds of times throughout the last 80 years that America has done horrifying crimes and committed genocides and done every possible evil thing you can imagine. There's been a big question about this war, about who's responsible and who's pulling the strings. And is Israel pulling the strings? Did Israel force Trump or force America into this war? And it's kind of interesting to think about because, I was always, prior to the last couple of years, I was always in my position of Israel, thinking about that and talking about it. Israel's basically a U.S. military outpost or a Western military outpost in the Middle East. And they engage.
I think of that as another Chomskyism, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And it's something that, at the very least, even if you don't want to go fully and start believing, every single thing that that America does that's bad is being controlled by Israel, that I also don't think is accurate. But I think one thing that has become clear over the last couple of years is that it's slightly more complex and nuanced, this relationship. And obviously, people in the Trump administration have said, oh, they've tried to blame Israel and said, oh, they were going to go ahead with this attack and we were just forced to. And you wonder how much of that is just trying to prevent culpability for themselves. But I'm wondering how you two have started to think about this relationship between America and Israel, and how you kind of square that circle, and how you've become to understand the connection between these two places, and how they act on the global stage like this.
I think that's Justin's wheelhouse for sure.
John never touches this. He never touches it.
That's fair.
He's very doesn't. I don't touch this issue, the tail and the dog and stuff. It's a Chomskyism too. That like history starts when you're a Chomskyist. It starts in 1945 when the U.S. Becomes the global economic hegemon. The global takes over the empire, right? And Chomsky also tells a story that I don't believe is true anymore, which is that the U.S. basically was not interested in Israel until 1967. And then 1967, Israel impressed America with their use of principally French technology to defeat the Arabs. They defeated Egypt, they defeated Syria, etc. And that made America think, wow, we can really use Israel to control the region. And I just don't think any of that is true anymore. I think that's a totally incorrect reading of history. And part of it is because for Chomskyism, history starts in 45/67. And if you look earlier than that, if you start the clock with the Zionist movement in the early 1900s and the Zionist Congress of 1906 and the novel written by Herzl, Alt Neuland, in the 1880s, I think it was, you see that this is actually a project of Western Jewish European people who want to colonize the same way that all of the other Europeans are colonized. There's this drive to have colonies, and you're not really a truly white master race unless you have colonies. And that's another thing that Chomsky and Finkelstein get wrong. Which is like the idea that there's like a structural anti-Semitism in America, which was alleviated after 1967. And that's also not true. There's tremendous philo-Semitism in America and in the West. A lot of the racist authors who wrote the scientific racist texts believed that the Jews were also a superior race. They believed that Jews were a kind of white person. And so they, these Jewish people who believed in these race theories, like Herzl, and the Zionist leaders like Weizmann and others, they believed that they should have a colony, and they should have maybe more than one colony. So there's a colonial drive in the European Jewish community that matches what the British, the English colonialism and French colonialism and Germans want colonies and Japanese want colonies. And that's what's going on. That's what explains a lot of what they're doing. And the British understood the Zionists as a serious power bloc with financial power and independent power and abilities that they had to make a deal with. And that's where the Balfour Declaration, the Balfour Declaration was a declaration by Balfour to Lord Rothschild. And who did Jeffrey Epstein work for? The Rothschild family. So the Rothschilds were understood to be this powerful pan-European banking family who wanted Israel. And so, from the British ruling class perspective, it's like, well, the Jews want this thing, we can give them this thing. Like it's one of the pieces on the board. If the Jews want a colony here, if the Rothschilds want a colony here, part of this European ruling class, let's give it to them. And so, by the time of 1967, this was all, very much in place. by the 1930s, when the Arab Revolt happened. And maybe I can pass it back to John for this, because it's he doesn't have to touch this question to talk about Qassam and the resistance. But when the Arab Revolt happened and Palestinians were kind of recognizing the writing on the wall, because they'd been pretty systematically deceived by the British about what the Jews, and Jewish colonists were really doing there. When they figured it out and they started this revolt, the British crushed the Palestinians on behalf of the Jewish community. They crushed them. They crushed that rebellion. And a lot of the techniques and methods and torture and genocide that they committed in the 30s was the template for what Israel did in 1948 when they were ethnically cleansing Palestine. So just the idea that this was like, oh my God, wow, those plucky Israelis, they defeated the Arab armies. We can use them, is just not. It does not hold up historically. So where are we today? In terms of the tail and the dog. Like, I think of the entire American establishment, Democrats, Republicans, millionaires, most professionals, the most of the elite is Zionist. You want to talk about like whether they're Jewish or not, like, doesn't matter. They're Zionist. The ideology is Israel is forever, belongs to the Middle East. The title to the real estate of the Middle East belongs to them. It would be fine if they took it all, as Mike Huckabee said, and like, whether Israel is forever from a pessimism point of view, which is what Chomsky and I'd say Finkelstein, that's the tack they take, is like, well, Israel can't be defeated, Israel exists, so you might as well figure out how to come to terms with it. Or you're like, they have a biblical claim, or they're the master race. Whatever it is, the outcome is the same, right? Israel is forever, and so whatever we have to do to make sure that's true, we'll do. And that, I think, is the political reality. I don't think you can ever split Trump and Netanyahu. I don't think you
Yeah,
can
I
ever
think that's
split.
the good point that you make, I think, about that, just that they're parts of the same party.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The
Excuse me.
efforts to separate them do more to obfuscate than it does to clarify, right?
Yeah, and I'm always also reticent, even if it seems like the relationship is maybe slightly more complex than, oh, this is just a U.S. Or Western military outpost that's there to dominate the region and to facilitate like resource extraction. It's obviously more complex than that, but I'm always very reticent to go too far in that direction where people start making excuse, like suggesting that like there's this innocence to places like the United States or Canada or the UK, and that's being corrupted somehow by this malign foreign force that's forcing us to do all these terrible things.
No, it's
That's never been
prior to
true.
that, Rob. It's prior to that. It's not that there's some kind of innocence. It's that there's no independent existence for any of these countries. Like the U.S., Israel, UK, Canada, Australia, France, Germany. They have incredible. Their ruling classes are a single unit. They have incredible discipline. They pass the same laws. They suppress the same symbols wherever they are. They do all the same things. When it comes time to like move these missile systems to protect Israel, everybody does it. When it comes time to move money from one front to protect Israel, everybody does it. When it comes time to circumvent the United Nations Security Council, whatever, everybody does it on a dime. So you can't even think of like they're being corrupted by Israel or by the Jewish community or whatever. It's all one ruling class, one club, one Epstein club. And like,
Yeah.
there's no point in trying to break that up. There's no good people in there that you're going to like find to save from this.
Yeah. I think that was the lesson of the genocide for sure, was
Yeah.
like, you could, in a country like Canada, like, what really is Canada's stake in Gaza? What was the thing that we would lose as a country if our politicians said like, this is not okay?
Yeah.
Like my 6-year-old does not think that this is okay. People can see this from the most bare assessment that this is insane. What would people have lost in Canada to
Yeah.
have just, come out and said, even just like perfunctory statements, but they can't even manage to do that.
No, on the contrary, like
Yeah, on the contrary, they seemed
what force motivated like 600 Canadian doctors to sign a statement like demanding that Israel go harder against Gaza
Yeah.
hospitals? What is that? Like can you explain that, like, in terms of like it's a useful outpost for American imperialism in the Middle East? No. No.
what does it give you? And that it's like,
Yeah.
This
it's
is
not
an
like if we cut it
investment.
off, we lose our key energy source, or we lose our key
No.
financial source. There's just, for a country like Canada, there was just really nothing that you could say that they benefit in any way from Israel. And
No.
still, even like our, nominally centrist party of the NDP, like, we're barely had anything to say.
No, and they punished people in their party for saying
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's their
pro-resistance things.
primary function as a
Yeah.
political unit, is to punish people
Yeah.
for saying
Yeah.
things about Palestine.
Yeah. And that's kind
For
of what
no
to me
benefit.
makes.
Israel does not care about the NDP. You're not going to get more friends in
Yeah.
Israel. They hate you anyway. Like, you
Yes.
can't say something that will make them, be like, oh, okay.
No,
They
but
just
it's an
go further
investment.
and further.
It's an investment in colonialism. It's an investment in like race. We're all part of the same master race. Like it's that. Those are the things that are motivating this.
I think that's what's interesting to me about Mark Carney. It's what makes him kind of an interesting figure because he doesn't strike me as being particularly like ideologically motivated by anything other than just like raw numbers
Gold.
and data. Like,
Gold.
yeah, but it's interesting. It was
He
it was
stole the
interesting.
gold.
It was interesting seeing the contrast between Carney standing up there at Davos and giving this speech, which made so many headlines, which was really, we can see, was in direct like consequence of these threats that Canada has been facing by Trump, threats of annexation and this kind of stuff. And of course, Carney's speech was couched in this kind of like anti-communist language and this framework as well, because that's the language that they speak, is anti-communism. So it's been fascinating to watch him try to carve out this space of kind of standing for our sovereignty and just talking in this frank language about the rules-based order. And then when they launched this like idiotic, insane, psychotic war, Carney, and can bomb a girls' school, Carney on day one says, we're against the Iranian aggression and we support this military action. And the Liberal government is currently sanctioning Iran, the country that's being bombed and attacked, who was attacked and bombed in the middle of a negotiation that they were part of in good faith. And not only that, we're passing Bill C9 in Canada. I don't know if you two have been paying attention to that, but like this bill that's basically being enacted to specifically limit the ability of people to protest Israel specifically, and protest like IDF presence in our communities, and protest illegal land sales in these illegally occupied territories. So it's bizarre seeing someone like Carney, who again doesn't strike me as this like deeply ideological person who really cares about these geopolitical issues, but still through all these different means and through using rhetoric and sanctions and legal means attacking people's ability to protest, is still just like fully on board with this project while also trying to position himself outside of it. It's fascinating.
A single decent statement in the 3 years of war in Gaza would have gotten more credibility for Canada in the world than right? Just a simple statement. And they couldn't do it. There was no event that they woke up in the morning and said like, they probably don't let their kids watch the news because they don't want them to even see it. Like BBC used to have to say, before they reported on Gaza, they would say, like, get the kids out of the room. We're about to go, report on some
Yeah.
insane things that no one should hear.
The most serious statement that we heard in all that time was about a man dressed as Spider-Man waving a Palestinian flag outside Mount Sinai Hospital. And every single politician in the country within minutes was out there, hat in hand, and just saying, oh, we're so horrified by this. It's just been one of the things that has made
Spider-Man got done wrong.
I always talk about the Spider-Man, and it might seem insane to someone that's not familiar with that specific incident, but it just felt so emblematic to me of how completely backwards everything is in the way that this is talked about in the professional media class and political class in this country.
Just intellectually embarrassing. Like, it's embarrassing.
But Justin, what do you make of Mark Carney and his speech in Davos and his positioning? Like, is it the same
Nothing.
kind of
Nothing
analysis
it's
for you?
meaningless chatter. It's just meaningless chatter. Like, it's just, you know, I think that speech was. I listened to the whole thing, and I listened to Trump. I feel like there's a the Democrats are different from the Republicans, and Carney's different from Trump, and there's all this diversity in the West. It's all just fake. Like, the speech is fake. Like, he didn't even believe, that guy doesn't believe a thing that he says himself.
No.
He's a banker.
Yeah.
When he was in charge of the bank, the British bank too. Like, it's not like he's not a Canadian, right? Like, like, if you look at his career and his background, like, he is a demonstration of the fact that Canada isn't a real thing. Like, people make this joke, like, Canada's not real.
Yeah.
And, like, you can see, like, the Bank of England. He's the governor of the Bank of England. Now he's the Prime Minister of Canada. What is going on there?
It was
Like,
to go back to your statements about how democracy and our evolving views on that. It was so surreal to see him just get parachuted onto the scene, being sent from upper management to go, okay, we got to deal with the crisis that's going on here. Yeah. And he just comes out of nowhere, just walk right into being prime minister of the country to show how absolutely fake our democracy is in the first place. It was very surreal.
Or even that it only takes like a person with half a wit to be able to step into that situation, and everyone was like, oh, he calmed down the situation, he and he probably did save us from something.
Well, but that's part of the project too, right? Is like, you have Polyev and you have Alberta, and they're like, they can always fire this separatism up, and they can always, like, threaten, now they've kidnapped Maduro. It's like, he can kidnap Carney, and then make Canada do whatever they want anyways, right? So it's like to me, it's like being able to threaten that is part of getting the compliance of everybody, and, like, we're all supposed to be super relieved because it wasn't Polyev, and I am relieved that it wasn't Polyev.
Yeah,
but, like,
just even to hear him for 4 years would have been.
But keeping those little fires burning of, like, fear, legitimate fear of someone like Polyev is how they keep this fake game and this fake country going.
We've talked about it before, Justin, but it's interesting because it's just the good cop, bad cop routine. And you see it internationally with the United States and Canada, and you see it domestically within Western liberal democracy embedded in it. You have the nice guy, and you wouldn't want to talk to my partner. When he gets back, he's going to be really upset. And just like that's how we're controlled and demobilized domestically, and that's how all this international kind of kayfabe works as well.
Yes. Exactly.
But I think it destroyed a generation. The fact that there was nobody in Canada that spoke out over something that is going to haunt people for real for the rest of their lives, and that there wasn't one moment. And I don't know what their kids are going to think when their kids grow up and say, like, you were in the, that kind of cliche of, like, what are you going to say to your kids where you were when the genocide and what you were doing, and, like, that they don't have the courage to say that and believe that they'll still be able to be in this, what Justin calls the satanic club, right? Is it that the fear that they're going to
his words, not mine,
out of that? because they would have, those words would have, uh, the world needed it. Canada needed it. The people that you're supposedly leading needed that to be said, and the consequences were zero. I mean, what the consequences wouldn't be worse
Apparently not.
than the next president coming in and saying, we're going to make you the 51st state and we're going to take Greenland on the way, and like, yeah, just but they
Apparently
didn't do
not
it. It
though.
just
Like
utter
that
cowardice.
has to tell you something about how the world works, because it can't be just a coincidence that nobody prominent from any part of Canada's elite could muster a single word.
Yeah.
It has to be that there is some, like, I mean, this is why conspiracy theories
Exactly.
happen,
Yeah.
right? It's like,
It feeds into
how
this
could
idea.
that possibly be?
Yeah.
That does not make sense unless there is, some agent emailing people behind the scenes, millions of emails, and like inviting them to islands to sexually abuse children, like, which is a crazy, plot for a story, but obviously isn't real and could not possibly be,
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I
Of
mean, plots
course.
for stories. Justin wrote a fiction book about Gaza, and we were talking just all throughout the war of like, if you had pitched
yeah,
that book, even a fraction of what we witnessed, they would probably arrest you,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Like
would
in terms of the
probably,
Israeli, so Rob, the Israelis are the bad guys in this book. And what I did was I had footnotes. It's a fiction, but I had footnotes because all the Israeli bad things that were done in the book by the bad guys were real things that had been done in the 2014 war, the 2012, or previous wars on Gaza. But like when this genocide started in 2023, you know, like the stuff that Israel did is so far beyond what I was able to conceive. And
Yeah.
you know,
I mean, it's illegal to have certain types of posters or chants or
yeah,
whatever. And you think about writing a book that projected Israel
yeah,
as the criminality that we saw, you would be
yeah,
arrested.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
would be arrested.
You're not allowed to. It's not allowed in the West. The free speech, which Chomsky called the freest country, he said America is the freest country in the world.
Yeah.
And that's why
That's why he's able to do the work he does, right?
yeah,
That's what he would always say.
yeah, and it's the freest country in the world, and it's the best country in the world, and you absolutely cannot describe all the things that Israel has done, and not get into serious legal trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's going back to Chomsky. That's one of the things that I've kind of come to think about him, because he has that famous moment in that BBC interview with that interviewer where he says, like, "No, I'm not saying you're self-censoring. I'm saying if you believed anything different, you wouldn't be sitting where you're sitting." And ultimately, I've come to think of him as like that's like him looking in a mirror and talking to himself, because he did kind of serve a valuable purpose. I think it's as being kind of an outlet for that kind of a viewpoint, but with this very strict limitation on how far it could go. And yeah, and to talk about the ways that like some of this speech is being criminalized, that's exactly the concern right now with Canada and Bill C-9 that I'm kind of really worried about. And this idea of like, a terrorist group and what phrase or slogan or image might be determined by a cop to
Yeah,
constitute support for a terrorist group, and the way this idea of what a terrorist group is can change and morph at any time, and it can start to include whoever the state decides, including organizations like Sami Doon in Canada, which was prescribed a terrorist organization, a group that's doing work on behalf of Palestinian prisoners who we know factually have been tortured and sexually abused in ways that we can't even fathom. And we know this not just over the last couple of years, but going back decades. And we're taking the groups that are working on behalf of these prisoners, or hostages, you might describe them,
Yeah.
and we're calling them terrorist organizations. And like the way that this can be further enshrined into our law to limit people's ability to not just work on behalf of people, but speak out and protest is really kind of scary. But I do want to get a little bit further into like the actual details that are going on with the war in Iran right now. Obviously the historical context and all these subjects are very interesting to me, and I think it's important to set the table for it. But over the last couple of weeks, we've seen this cycle over and over of Trump making these threats. Everything that he's saying seems tied to when the market opens and closes. People have started to notice this pattern now. One thing that has been seen clear to me, which is that they did, no matter who convinced them of this, whether it was Israel and Jared Kushner and Netanyahu, or like Claude or ChatGPT or whatever AI agents they're getting advice from on this, it does seem like they did think that this was going to be easy, that they were just going to be able to maybe launch this war over the weekend and do decapitation strikes and take out the leadership. And then there was going to be this grateful army of Iranian freedom fighters that are just going to sweep through and overthrow the government. Obviously, that didn't happen, and you've seen these shifting goalposts over the last couple of weeks. Trump's declared victory, I think, 4 or 5 separate times. They keep saying that they've been 100% annihilated, and Iran apparently is not getting the message. And so the latest update to that is that, of course, last week, as soon as the markets closed, Trump made this threat to start targeting energy infrastructure. As long as the Strait of Hormuz remained open. Obviously, as soon as the market opened on Monday, he walked that back and said, we're having these productive talks. Meanwhile, more troops are being brought into the region. Here we are. It's Friday. The markets are about to close. I'm just wondering, John and Justin as well, what we think is about to happen. Do we think there's this insane, ill-advised, actual boots on the ground invasion that's about to take place, or what do you suspect is on the horizon here?
I can't believe that they will do it.
Our
I
minds
can't
are
believe
repelled.
that there's an entire room of Pentagon military experts that are sitting there saying, like, let's ratchet this up. I just can't. But
So let's just think
I'm inclined
about
to
a
agree,
ground.
but it's like it doesn't seem like it
let's just
stopped
think
them
about a
before,
ground.
so that's why I'm
no,
not so
it
sure.
doesn't stop them before.
Let's just think about a ground invasion, okay? Just like what do you do in a ground invasion? We have to assume it's going to be an amphibious ground invasion. They're going to come from boats. They're going to come on helicopters, and they're going to take either some part of the coast or some island. They're going to do that under fire. Iran already knows where the ships or the boats are. They know what they have. And when they get into range, Iran will be hitting them with drones and anti-ship missiles. And so if they manage to get to the coast and start deploying their helicopters, and these helicopters aren't shot down, then they're going to land and they're going to try to establish what you would call a beachhead. They're going to try to establish a base where they can continuously supply their troops with ammunition, with fuel, with food, with the things they need. And this beachhead will also be under fire, and it'll be under fire from close, and it'll be under fire from far. And they're going to presumably, the doctrine in these situations is to have air support. The air support will be hitting targets on the ground and trying to suppress the fire that'll come, the artillery, all of the drone launches that are going to be hitting these forces. And that air support is also going to come under effective anti-aircraft fire, which has shot down an F-35. Probably others, F-16s. So all of all of these things that have to happen, are easier to do from one of the bases that they already had surrounding Iran, that they were forced to evacuate out of fear. So they're going to try to do something under fire that they could not do from farther away in a fortified base. So this is why I don't know. I just cannot wrap my head around what is going on here. And my mind is like, this cannot be happening. This and the Americans, by the way, like they're not. We all watch American ex-military men, always qualify what they're saying with, American Marines are really good and they're really courageous and they
Yeah.
always do what they fulfill their mission. And it's like, no, they don't. They are much better at occupying and doing anti-civilian warfare. Standing at checkpoints, again, calling in airstrikes. This is a level, trying to do an amphibious assault on Iran is a level of courage, of suicidal
Yeah,
courage, that
suicidal
I
courage.
have never, I've never seen, in all my study of history, I've never seen Americans exhibit this. So
And that's
this
why I
is,
say there's no way there's not people sitting around the table in the Pentagon saying the same thing. I mean, the country itself is mountainous all the way around. So any place that you want your amphibious landing, you're arriving at essentially a cliff face, right? It doesn't matter where you do that. If you come from the north, I mean, Tehran is completely surrounded by mountains. It's just it's not, the number of troops that you'd be talking about, like World War II type stuff, where you're trying to put tens of thousands of boots onto the beach in this window of time. I just don't see that. I do think that the troops going to the region is, part of the fact that they have what they have right now isn't going to change the dynamic, and it's not going to bring negotiations. So they don't know what else to do besides send some more guys with famous names, the Marine
mhm.
Expeditionary Unit, the 82nd Airborne, send them.
You're
But
at
they're only
war. You need
sending
troops
a few
there.
thousand.
Yeah,
If they're not sending 50 or 100,000,
yeah.
so it's still not enough to do any of these things. I mean, I broke it down on the show yesterday because I took the New York Times article where it was calling these military guys experts, and then it made a map and it said the experts say that these are the islands that the American soldiers can take, and they don't even show up on the map that I'm showing. They're like the tiniest little island, and they're all separated from each other in this like miniature archipelago, which would be
Do you
hell.
guys do you guys know the story of Snake Island during the Russia-Ukraine war? Fairly early in the Russia-Ukraine war, there was an island called Snake Island that the Russians
I remember
took.
massive amounts of propaganda that was
Yeah.
coming out about this story, the heroic
Yeah, so
defenders of Snake Island that said "Go f yourself" to the Russians,
yeah.
and that story
So
spread like wildfire.
the Russians took it pretty easily, because it's an island that's basically indefensible. And then the Russians got there and then they realized, oh, this is indefensible. Because if it's indefensible for them, it's indefensible for you. And
Yeah.
so if the Marines take an island, which I don't know, maybe they can, and then they plant the flag, and then the drones start coming, and then they're gonna realize that the reason this island wasn't defended is because it can't be defended, including by the Marines.
And does that include like Karg Island, like this
Well,
whole
Karg
idea about
Island
Karg
is a
Island and all the
really interesting
infrastructure?
problem. Yeah, Karg Island is a really interesting problem because you have to go through the Strait of Hormuz to get to Karg Island.
And run the entire coastline of the mountainous coastline of Iran to get to that island. And when you get to that island, it's just a depot. So you're not even control, like basically the water in that area is so shallow that they have to have the terminal be offshore, right? Because the boats can't get in. It's not it's not the prize that they
No.
seem to think it is.
The theory of Karg Island, which is a wrong theory. But the theory of Karg Island is based on a whole bunch of assumptions about the political economy of Iran that aren't true. The idea is that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is like a parasitic, entity that's kind of controlling Iranian politics. These are the stories that I think the Iranian exiles tell
Yeah.
the Americans. So there's this parasitic thing. They get all their money from Karg Island. So all you need to do is seize Karg Island, and then you win because the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps won't get paid, and then they'll quickly surrender. That's like some kind of analysis. Now, it's obsolete because the Iranians' whole point is they can destroy everybody's oil. So if they've never said we are going to protect our oil, or if you threaten our oil, we'll give up. They've said if you threaten our oil, we destroy everybody's oil. Everybody. And so taking that island is just going to ensure that they decide to, I mean, unless they've evacuated it already and they already have other options. They don't care about exporting. They care about control. They're not trying to make money right now. They're trying to establish their sovereignty, and they're trying to establish deterrence. So the whole theory is not, it's not a sound strategy, and it's not based on a correct understanding of how the world works, or what the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps is, or what the current situation is, with the strait already closed.
It doesn't open the strait. It clogs the strait up with conventional war that we haven't seen. Yeah, it's just not even close. And the Iranian ability to destroy the oil fields in the neighboring countries are the same advantage that they have over the troops in the strait. They are on higher ground. They are firing down on them. They have better weaponry. They have total command of, the top cliffs. It's just in every type of warfare, going back to Sun Tzu. It's like you don't want to fight that, right? You don't want to go up the plains of Abraham or whatever. Like it's you can't win. And then while that's happening,
Or Vizinian, the
you're
Princess
creating.
Bride, is another example. Never start a land
Or
war in
Star
Asia.
Wars, it's where Obi-Wan said to
Yeah.
Anakin, it's over. I have the high ground, and then look what
Yeah, don't
happened
fight
then.
uphill. I mean, it's not rocket science, but
Well, yeah.
those Gulf countries will cease to exist in weeks. Maybe you want to give them months. Sure. You knock out their desalination plants, their single node of failure in all of these countries are the same, and they're
Yeah.
single strike. They're single strike. They're not some long protracted, war of attrition. They're immediately when it happens, they might not even fire on the Americans first. They might just fire over their heads and end the Gulf countries that are all around them. That creates right there the biggest, oil
Refugee
crisis,
crisis. Yeah.
refugee cry, whatever, the whole thing, right? These countries cannot exist. They run on single point of failure, desalination plants. Their economy is 100% tied to the fuel and energy that they export through that channel that is never getting out until that channel is open. They are more likely to get their fuel out by negotiating directly with Iran and not having the Americans involved at all in this situation. So that kind of an operation has knock-on effects that really do make me say, like, that's what the end of the empire looks like. When you lose the entire energy market of the Middle East, it turns to Chinese currency. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's what it looks like, because you can't win that war. So the Americans lose coming out of that. What is the situation for the empire coming out of that? We still have, 2 more years of Trump destroying the economy, and
Yeah. And Iran is gonna be in charge of whether anybody gets their oil out of there or not.
getting rich off of it, right? And
Getting
people
rich off of it.
misunderstanding, and the dollar, the way the U.S. crushed their economy in the lead up to all of this.
Yeah.
You can fix it with completely changing your export systems to Asia, your currency trading in,
Yeah.
these knock-on things that are actually can result in what seem like the demise of the empire, which I am very careful about saying, because obviously, um,
Yeah.
you know, they have a pretty long track record of surviving absolutely idiotic wars.
But
But
they've
this
never
one,
done anything like this,
this one
John.
is
They've never
beyond.
done anything like this before. And that, like, including this landing, like, the closest thing is like some of the things they did when they were fighting Japan in World War II, when they had mobilized the entire US nation, such as it was,
Yeah.
You know, and they were doing this island hopping,
And they
and
would
they
they would
didn't.
lose Marines. They would lose the entire, the entire company,
Mhm.
the raiding group is all dies to try to
Yeah,
get the
yeah,
island.
and they didn't invade Japan. Like at the end, they were like, we should probably just use the nuclear weapon because we're too scared to invade Japan.
Yeah.
You know, and by the way, like I've been saying this in the sit rep, even if they use a nuclear weapon on Iran, this war is not going to end. Iran is Iran's doctrine, Iran's military strategy is intended for them to fight on even after getting hit with a nuclear weapon. So
Yeah.
like there is no button that can be pressed to defeat Iran
Well, I
if
really
you
appreciate
just
this, like,
want it badly enough.
yeah, I really appreciate this detailed analysis and actual facts that can really articulate exactly how stupid and insane this would be. And I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing, but then I look at like a guy like Pete
Yeah.
Hegseth and the people that
Yeah.
are there
On
right now, and
drugs.
it's like these might just be the morons to
Yeah.
make
They
this
might
decision.
just be
Like
the
you talked about,
guys.
there's this myth of not just like the American Marine, but like the American Special Forces operator, right?
But this
And
is
if
different.
you've consumed this steady diet of right wing media and all the nonstop military propaganda that comes out of Hollywood, you might believe it. And it's Pete Hegseth strikes me as a guy that does fully believe all that stuff. So yeah, it's probably would be insane and suicidal, but if anyone's going to do it, these might just be the idiots to go along with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, this was unthinkable, you know, and they did it. They've already done a lot of unthinkable stuff. And so, yeah. I yeah.
Well, I guess
But
that's
this
They think
the
they
is
had a 2-week window, and that they don't have a 2-week window. And
yeah.
Iran is in control of this situation right
Well,
now.
that's the question I have now, I guess next, which is that like, is there even an option to just declare victory and pull out now?
no,
Like, is that even on
no,
the table anymore? And
no,
like, there's been a
because
lot of talk about
Iran,
degrading Iran's ability to launch these missiles.
no,
Obviously they've done some stuff, but Iran
no,
still
because
seems to be quite set up to continue this war indefinitely. And
yeah,
yeah, I'd like to know
Well,
what
they're
your
going to
thoughts are on
take
that.
the strait. Before they were, secure. They were around it with boat, but they're taking the strait now. So they will control what
yeah,
comes in and out of the strait. And it
yeah,
doesn't take long of that with 20% of the world's um, oil, but it's also 20% of the
yes.
natural gas too. It's not total together 20%. It's 20 of each.
Mhm.
You control that absolutely. You completely switch the world's balance of power because the countries that are getting that oil are not the crappy democracies that we talked about at the beginning of the show, right?
No, and
Well, Iran's going to be so terrified of Canadian sanctions that they're going to allow us to
it's the
extract some.
wrong it's the wrong frame to
Mark
think
Carney has
like
them
and there's
trembling.
a there's a lot of liberal Zionist outlets, you know, whether this is what they call themselves or not, that are trying to present this in terms of how long can Iran go on, and that is just the wrong question. It's the wrong question. The question people should be asking is, what is it going to take for Iran to be convinced that they're safe from further rounds of degrading strikes and unprovoked attacks and economic starvation? And what it's going to take to prove to Iran that Iranians are safe from that is a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Well,
And
it's a, what possible reason would they have to believe that the United States about anything
yeah,
when they negotiated the JCPOA? Trump
yeah,
comes in, just throws that in the garbage. They're negotiating this time, and in the
yeah,
meantime, they killed Soleimani just for fun, I guess. And then they're
yeah.
negotiating this time, and they get their entire leadership assassinated while they're doing it. So, what possible? Even if they
The
had this
bases
inclination
have
to
to
want to
be
stop
gone.
things, like what
The
The
possible reason would they
bases,
have
bases
to
would be
do that?
gone. If
the
Trump takes an
bases,
off
yeah,
ramp that
yeah,
isn't the end of the war, that he just declares victory, he loses the bases in the Middle
yeah,
East. He loses the alliances with the energy producing
yeah.
countries because they are immediately going to make a deal with Iran.
Yeah, they're gonna have to kiss Iran's ring. The bases go, and then Iran is still gonna bomb Israel after that because because Israel is psychotic, and Israel will never kiss Iran's ring, and so Iran is going to have to do enough damage to Israel that's what they said. They said they have to never think about attacking Iran again.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Like Israel is structurally like Israel's entire identity is based on attacking Iran at this point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is not about
And their
Iran
army's
running out.
falling apart too. And the idea that they can have 5 divisions fighting Hezbollah in
Yeah,
South Lebanon and also carry out this. I mean, first of all, if Trump takes the off ramp and Israel loses the strategic refuelers, they can't fight the war.
yeah.
So, these off ramps that they talk about in the media all the time, as if there's going to be at some point one that he'll take.
What's
Those
the
aren't clear to me.
what's the movie reference from The Watchmen that people are saying, Rob? I'm not locked in here with you. You're
Yeah.
locked in here with me, right? That's that like once they killed those girls and killed the Ayatollah, like Iran is like you're locked in here with us now.
Yeah, and I think
We're
that's
gonna
been one of the
decide.
amazing things about, witnessing the last several years is that, like, there were reformers in Iran that wanted
Yeah,
peace, that wanted to talk with the West, that wanted to calm the situation down, and those people are all dead now. And
yeah,
now, not only do you not have the Iranian freedom loving protesters sweeping through and overthrowing the regime, now you have a completely unified country that is supporting the current government, which is now being filled with even way more hardliners who will never want to have these kind of conversations or negotiations at all.
for what?
And why would they?
And street demonstrations that are larger than the street demonstrations that got covered in the Western media as these, colored
Yes.
revolutions or whatever for all these times under bombs.
Yeah,
Trump says, don't go out on the streets. It's too dangerous. And every single night in dozens of cities, there's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people out on the street.
Wow.
It's just the
Well,
wrong country. It's the
they
wrong
look
country.
they look at the bomb, they look at it drop, and then they continue chanting.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, it's
this
just
is
Yeah. You
it's
watch
like
the
this whole it's
videos
like the
of
situation you couldn't have imagined, a situation that could have gone worse for whatever they were thinking was going to happen a couple weeks ago. It's been the
yeah.
exact opposite of that. So it's actually just kind of amazing to watch it transpire.
yeah,
As scary as
the
some of the
Israelis are
far-reaching implications that it
screaming.
might have.
Any missile that falls, you have dozens of Israelis screaming and running when it's nowhere even close to them. All the videos we get out of Iran are just people handling the situation with the most calm,
Yeah.
cool. We see these stories of stores, because the economy got wiped out. You see stores with posters, saying take what you need, and
Yeah.
to prevent looting or whatever, take what you need, and we'll figure it out after the war.
Yeah.
And that's what war does. It really does create that, and that's one of the things that got me so hooked on this line of work, is working in Palestine and seeing how humans deal with the war, with the Israelis. Like, what does it do to your life? And how you overcome that is just, you see people at their best, and you've pushed Iran into that position where they have seen, each other, their neighbors, um, at their best. And I think you couldn't have done more to unify a country.
Yeah, and I mean, I really think that like in January, when they whatever the assets that the Americans and the Israelis had in Iran were activated to try to overthrow the government, and thousands of people were killed, like police and every first responder, and ambulances were burned, and they were trying to get the regime in such a shaky situation that when they finally attacked, the government would fall. And they ended up having their entire network rolled up, everybody arrested, Starlink shut, and Iran was in a position now to actually fight this war without worrying about being subverted from the inside. So it just that also backfired in
Yeah,
such a
that was a
huge way.
big moment.
And like
And the country defends
yeah,
them, right? And that
yeah,
defends them, and the route out of the horrors of the war, you're finding through your government and your
yeah,
government's ability to be upstanding for your nation, and that whatever you think of the IRGC, um, that goes a long way for people, that you have someone like that in a war. So
And the
yeah,
Yeah.
Lego
I
and the
don't know
Lego
what
videos don't hurt either.
I don't know how they're getting out of it, because Trump can't just declare victory and walk away.
No.
That can't happen. If that happens, that's the end of the US in the region, because the very first day they leave, the Gulf states are negotiating with
Yeah,
Iran.
that's that's the thing, John. That I think is the only way I can see this ending. That like or what? Like we just the whole world is destroyed or whatever. Like and
Yeah.
I don't even know if that then the war goes on because if Iran falls, you guys, like if Iran falls, then Israel will go on to Turkey and Egypt and fight people that are already on board and on side.
Yeah.
They'll go and destroy, they'll re-destroy countries that have made peace with them. Israel will never stop. So if Iran doesn't stop them, some new coalition will have to stop them. This is gonna go until they're stopped. So like we should all hope that it stops sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would
Yeah, I
be
agree.
nice to just like skip to the end part rather than deal with whatever the next decade might
Yeah.
look like if they just feel like we need to just entrench and we can't show
Yeah.
weakness. So we've just got to
Yeah,
keep
when
throwing
Israel
human
loses in
beings into
South
the
Lebanon, when
flames
Israel
to
yeah.
keep it going.
When Israel loses in South Lebanon, they're gonna destroy Beirut as the
Yeah.
as the consequence, right?
Yeah.
And how do you think that's going, John? Like, because I know it's
I mean, it's
insane that in this context they're seizing South Lebanon the way that they are. We talked about how the Lebanese state is trying to arbitrarily surrender in advance and demand that the only people that are doing the fighting stop doing so. But that's not currently what's happening, is it?
No, I mean, this is Hezbollah's. They said the fight is existential. I mean, I think a lot of people wondered for the last couple years why Hezbollah didn't think that this was the existential war. They thought there was another war that they needed to be ready for sometime in the future. But things pretty clearly showed that this is the existential war, and they're stepping up right now because I think that they see the climate that this war with Iran might end soon because it's not going well for the Americans, and the goal for Hezbollah is to fight like hell today. We're seeing historic levels. I mean, we were seeing historic levels, and then they doubled those levels of operations in a single day, because they don't want, they're not doing a guerrilla strategy where you wait for the Israelis to move in and then you hit them. They're hitting them, so they're preventing the move into South Lebanon, because this is a moment in time for Lebanon where you could, turn around in 3 weeks from now and have a big chunk of South Lebanon be Israeli, and you wouldn't get that back for, you
Yeah.
know, a
Yeah.
generation.
Yeah, you're not gonna negotiate that back, that's for
No.
sure.
And so what
And
they're doing is
yeah.
they're fighting for every inch right now in the hopes that a ceasefire with Iran will deal with this front as well.
Which
And I
Iran
think,
said it would. Yeah.
yeah, they have said it would.
Yeah.
And that Hezbollah is doing that. And basically Hezbollah is proving their worth to the people in Lebanon who don't believe, that they should be able to have guns. When they defend the sovereign territory of Lebanon, their reason for existing becomes much, it goes back to its roots of defending the sovereignty of the country where nobody else can do it. Um, it's a dangerous moment, and it is a dangerous moment for the Israelis too. They have 5 divisions fighting on the Lebanon front. They have their 80% plus of their air force fighting with the US in Iran. Um, they can't handle this. They can't do 6 months of this. And I think Hezbollah's looked at this situation over the last few weeks and over the last few months, where you see what happened to Syria after Syria fell. You have to fight for this right now, and I think that they realize that they have regrouped from the previous time, where I think that they believed that they were, and they said, we're a support front. We're a support front in this war. They kind of had this disposition that this isn't the war. We want to be in solidarity with our allies, but this isn't our existential war. And
Yeah.
then the ceasefire happened in Lebanon after Hezbollah defeated Israel, by the way.
Yep.
Right? That's the key part of the story that people forget when they say Hezbollah has been so degraded, is that that's not the way that story ended. It ended with a push to the Litani River for Israel that was repelled by Hezbollah guerrillas. And then there was a ceasefire, and Israel operated in that ceasefire as if the war was still continuing, and that's when they lost territory in that ceasefire process. So they are now back and fighting to push that and to roll that back, and they have to win as well, because if they lose, Israel's going to control a significant portion of South Lebanon that may never come back. If you think those parts of Syria are coming back, they're
Yeah.
not.
Well, I mean, I think Iraq, the Iraqi resistance might have a say. It all depends on if Iran wins. Because if Iran wins, the map is going to change too. And if Iran wins and has decided, to make the Levant safe for Iran again, then that settlement includes Syria too. And I think everything that you said is right, John, but I also think that it's not just like a do or die moment for Hezbollah's perspective. It's also an opportunity from Hezbollah's perspective, because Israel is has Iran's hands on their throat right now. And that's also not gonna last forever. And so, now's the time to do stuff.
Now's the time.
And there are military things going on here in the war on that front that have never been seen before. We're seeing Iran providing some kind of equivalent of air support for Hezbollah with missiles from 1,000 kilometers away. That's never happened before.
Yeah.
There are things happening out of science fiction every day in this region, and it's
and every day is a decade too.
we're gonna be studying this for the rest of our lives. Such as it is.
Yeah, no, it's a really surreal historical moment. So it's pretty amazing to see all this happening each and every day. I think that's getting to a final thought territory, because we've been speaking for a while, and I want to let you both get on with your days. But it was very easy over the last 2.5 years of seeing the genocide in Gaza to ask big questions about Iran and their strategy of patience, and wanting Iran to do more and wanting Hezbollah to do more, to fight back and to do this or that. The armchair critics in the West, like myself. And it does, seeing what's been happening over the last month, there's been a kind of moment of realization, oh, perhaps there was something to that strategy of patience that all kinds of people were weighing in on. And maybe there's a reason that I'm not the one that's in charge and making these decisions, because you're seeing how that strategy now is being used to their benefit and has led us to this completely historical epoch.
Still felt it though. Still felt it the whole time.
Yeah.
I still felt it the whole time. I know what Hezbollah's capabilities are. I watched the battle after October 7th on an hour-by-hour basis, and they did not lose those capabilities. They just didn't. So they had them, and now we're seeing them. And and to see them in a coordinated, that's not even the most coordinated, right? We haven't even got to Yemen. Yemen could see what's going on in the Marine Expeditionary Unit in the Strait of Hormuz and close the Suez Canal. And now you're talking 60 or 70% of global, energy supplies.
And that's the thing, right? With the Suez Canal, it's another question. It's oh, that's an Egyptian sovereignty issue. Well, Egypt gave that sovereignty to Israel. So if Egypt isn't safeguarding their sovereignty from Israel and handed the Gaza border over to Israel, again, these are just concepts that constructs that you use that favor the imperialists ultimately.
Yeah, and the U.S. military couldn't even handle Ansar Allah and their blockades in the Red Sea when they
No,
weren't fighting Iran at the same time.
That's
no,
right.
and look at the size of that sea compared to the Strait of Hormuz. So when you just think about it, like the Americans are too scared to come within 1,000 kilometers of the Iranian coast
So
with their
how are the
most sophisticated warships with missile defense that are set up to do this, and they won't come 1,000 kilometers
so the
close.
Marines are
And then
how are
they're
the
going to push them
Marines
through a 12-kilometer shallow, rocky. It's just, you know, exactly for a warship to go through the Strait of Hormuz, they know exactly to the inch where the boat has to be, right?
Yeah.
So there's not even like, is there, when you're targeting, it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy. They're going to be running a gauntlet where every single GPS reading, you know, they're not going to miss it. It's just the channel is so shallow that there's only one way to go. So,
Well, markets are about to close, so
Yeah.
we'll find
We'll see
out
what happens.
soon.
Yeah, it's just
Thanks,
it's a
Rob.
really crazy and surreal historical moment. Like I said, we're just inundated with all kinds of misinformation and propaganda constantly. So that's why I really do appreciate so much the work that both of you do. And it was a real pleasure to have you both come back on the show to talk to me and the community about all this. So thank you very much to you both.
yeah, thanks for having us, Rob. We think the same way of your work. So,
Fantastic. Well, you're both welcome to come on again anytime. And
2
I'm
years.
sure there's going to be more to talk about, certainly.
2.5 years. We'll see you in 2.5 years.
Yeah, what world
for
are
the
we going to be
next-
living in? Who knows? I
now we
no
have to do
clue.
a sit rep. If the people have seen us on this show, there's going to be no excuse for a joint sit rep. So.
Exactly. Okay, well, thanks again, you
Okay.
two. And I'll
All right,
talk
guys.
to you very soon.
Take care, guys.